the reason that maybe some of you remember, there was this little science monthly magazine for the kids in Iran, which was called Danishmand. You remember this? And I was getting this. One day, there was a very long editorial title, which was saying, I may say in Farsi first and then I will in English. دانشمند آینده کسی است که بی سواد آینده کسی است که عکاسی نداند. The illiterates of the 21st century, or the illiterates of the future, will be whom that they don't know about photography. I imagine you are 13, 14 years old and you read this. And the first thing was to me, no, I don't want to be illiterate, I want to learn about it. That's how a lot of things started on me. And from those times till now, well, my main subject actually are children's photography and people life. This is what is more interest for me. The highest interest of my photography is the human history, the human culture. This is like, and you will see that I spend almost 35 years after working as a professional in the war zones, in the conflict. Some call me war photographer, and I said, no, I'm a peace correspondent, because I want to photograph the war to show to the people that why we all became a pacifist, why all of us, we have really to fight, I'm using the word exactly, to fight against the war. So, being in war zones, you can imagine the disasters and the catastrophe that one can see, especially if he's a photographer. You can imagine the numbers of the peoples dying, wounded people, destroyed houses that you have seen. But I choose somehow not mainly to show this as a war casualty, but what the war does to the survivors. What you see here is a girl that has been under bombardment in Afghanistan for her entire life, which is 5 years. So everything is come through the eyes. The eyes are the windows of the soul. And that's what I'm trying really to bring up. So I was reading, obviously, Rumi and other poets from my childhood, and this is one of the words which really talked to me. From those times, from this little boy started in Tabriz till now, here I am. These are some of my works which was covered in National Geographic magazine. I was been working for them from 1991, staying always freelance to allow me to do other works which I want to do. But as you see, all are about humans. My covers in the National Geographic, it's all about humans. But I also published more than 2,000 other publications in the world. I worked for the Time magazine in the 80s as a correspondent for Asia and Africa and Middle East, for Newsweek, for the Life magazine and many other publications that you see here. Because I am trying to find every possible way to spread the human knowledge, human relation through the photography. So the magazine publication is one of them. But the books are another them. So I published more than 30 books, working with my wife Rachel, that she's here, writer. And these are some of our books. Obviously, TV channels and all those things are also another part of the spreading the images. The National Geographic channel and TV, they have done a couple of documentaries on our works. We have done also short films, short stories for French TVs and other TVs. So this is another way of the, showing to the world what we do. Now, magazines, books, TVs, but exhibition is another way. So being an architect and quit architecture just left me with this idea of creating street art and you playing in the world, all the cities and everywhere is possible to create art in the public space and do installation. This is the only way I do from architecture, the designing of my exhibition. So for example, this is the one that was in 2013 in Paris in the Seine River. It is 1,000 feet long and 30 feet depth height of exhibition, 354 meters, I don't know how much feet. You guys still, you are measuring with your hands and feet. So I understand. Wake up a little. So, I will go more about all these things later. This is where we work. This is how I work. This is in Afghanistan. It's during the Taliban, when the Taliban still were fighting Ahmad Shah Massoud, and I was doing my first documentary with the National Geographic channel. Sitting beside me is Sebastian Junger. Sebastian Junger is a very close friend of mine, and probably you have heard his name. He's the writer of The Perfect Storm, and we have done a couple of works together. One of the very fine person and writers here. So it's funny that this is in North Afghanistan. We are crossing over the river, Kukcha River, and later I read that Alexander troops, they crossed the same river in the same spot on the same boats 2,000 years ago. Still they are using it. So a few works of my early works about Afghanistan. Afghanistan obviously is one of the countries which I spend a lot of time working on photographing and also creating momentums and humanitarian works, which I will explain later. So this was during the time that Afghanistan was invaded by the Russian. And to go there, you had to go disguised as an Afghan, dressed like them, walk on the mountains, not hiking. It was just under helicopters shooting and soldiers looking for you, and you have to hide and go around. This is, I remember it's a funny story also for the photographers here, that one of those troubles which I was hiding and walking on the mountains, it happened that the Russian, they have no RMI, so they were looking for me, and I had to hide daytimes on the mountains and just being able to walk in the night. For 14 days, I didn't have any food, so imagine 14 days just having rivas. What is rivas called in English? What is it? Rhubarb, yes. 14 days, mountains, you eating rhubarbs and drinking the river water. So I'm exhausted, and I saw a village, and I said, God, I'm just going to get some food there. I can't, even if they're full of Russians, I don't care about it. And I hide my cameras under my shawl, which I was dressed like them, walking slowly, just dying of hunger. And these kids, they saw my cameras under my shawl. They start running after me. Take our pictures, take our pictures. And I said, God, I wanted to hide as a photographer, but so I told them, go away. No, don't take a photographer. And they didn't understand why. They just run after me, take our pictures, second times. And I said, no, I even have energy to take my cameras off. Go away, I just need food. And they said, you take our pictures, we'll give you food. Third times. So this, I just got this picture, which became one of my famous pictures. So now every time people run after me, take pictures, of course, please, why not? This is also one of the early pictures of showing how the Mujahideen in Afghanistan fighting the Russian. They were called the shadow fighters, and that's how as a language, image is helping you to create momentum, to create what we call it, the symbolic. This has, some of these pictures obviously was in the Time magazine at those times, and cover or WordPress photo. But you see, I try to be, in my photography, very simple. I don't use very complicated composition. One of my main things on the photography is purification of what you want to say. You know, it takes time, just don't put anything that it is not needed in your pictures. Just go for what is essential. It's in poetry, it's the same thing. It's a lot of human knowledge about this. Purification of what you want to say, it's much more stronger. So, very simple compositions. This is also at the border, Afghanistan, Pakistan. An old man that the village was destroyed, and they have taken all his families crossing the border to be refugees, and then he arrived there, and then he said to his families, his extended family were 122 people, I count them, his sons, his daughters, and his grandson and grandsons, and he said, I want to stay here to see my country, don't go away. So they had to build a little village for them, and they stayed there, and he was spending all his days there. Refugees also, I have seen a lot of refugees all over the world. Crossings, going, runnings, and well, many of you have been also in this situation. You know what is meaning being refugees, being obliged to leave your country and houses. So this is one of those seen in the North Afghanistan, in the Badakhshan trend. Here is a very, very historical place. It is not just landscape of a mountain or a valley or a river. It's the entrance of one of the most important valleys in our common new history in Afghanistan, called the Panjshir Valley. Panjshir Valley is where the Ahmad Shah Massoud, a young engineer, civil engineer, started. He was living there, and he said that I don't want my country being invaded by the Russians. I'm going to fight them. Obviously, everybody's saying, hey, you young boy, 30 years old, you have 100,000 soldiers over there, and you want to fight them? So he started little by little. Finally, he created the biggest guerrillas army at the time in the world. More than 10,000, he trained them. And this is where he did one of his biggest tricks against the Russian armies. This is the entrance of the valley, and when the Russian columns started entering the valley, he just asked everybody to empty the valley and just get out of the valley. And so nobody was there when the Russians came in. At the end, when all of them, they have been inside the valley, there was some explosive here, and exploded them and closed the back of them. So they were all trapped inside the valley, the Russians. And then they started attacking them. So these are the little way that other things happen. And obviously this is his portrait. This is the portrait that I take from Massoud in 1985, and became famous and used all over, in Afghanistan especially. This is the one that people use it. Pictures of a special sport which is called buzkeshi in Afghanistan. for whom that they don't know, it's like a soccer. Imagine a soccer game playing on a horseback, and instead of a ball, you have a body of a big goat that the head was cut. The body was put in the water whole night, became heavy. So it's in the middle of the playground, and you have a horse come and get it and bring it to the goal, and the other one trying to stop you. So this is called buzkashi, and one of the important games in Afghanistan. I take these pictures of myself. I was on a horse. I traveled a lot on the horseback. And believe me, it was so hard that I was only able to stay 15 minutes over the horse. I also did a lot of stories for Geographic, especially the recent war between in the Afghan-Pakistan border. This was the US Special Forces. But you know what? For me, the soldiers are the same type of the victims of the war that civilians are. Because all these wars are decided in high places by president, by politicians, by generals, by people that put them on the power. So they are not the ones that go for the war. They are all victims. When you talk to them, they don't even know why they are, many of them. They don't even know where they are. So for me, he's as a victim as many of all the victims of the war. Now, when you're going in these countries and you see this kind of the scene, this is in Balochistan. Balochistan is part in Pakistan, part in Iran, part in Afghanistan. And those people were living in a very, very poor situation, still living there. This is a 75 years old man, walking 20 kilometers a day, just going to get some wood to bring home to make fire for the kitchen. And the shoes that he had, I made a research after, these are one of the eldest shoes ever existed, that we invented in the humanity there. Still they're using them. I don't want to say that in the same places we are using $10 million every month for the war. For those people saying that we want to bring you democracy. Another person that I photographed, Benazir Bhutto, she was a prime minister of Pakistan, one of the first women prime ministers. And when she started in the 80s coming to Pakistan, I was sent by Time magazine to cover her. She was assassinated a few years ago by a group of the Taliban and the Pakistan intelligence service. When I started working for National Geographic, my first story was Cairo and second was Turkey. This was in 1993, and obviously I left Iran in 1981 and I haven't been back there till now. So it makes like 25 years which I haven't been in Iran. And when I was going to do the story in Turkey, obviously one of my ideas was, oh, I will go to the border, just have a look. It has been like 12 years at the time that I haven't been in Iran, and said, I will go and have a border. So I fly to the city called Doğu Bayazıt and find a taxi driver, talk to him saying that I need a car for 4 days, I'm going to travel here and take pictures, and would you like? And I said, okay, how much is it? And we make a deal. And then he told him, but you know, I'm going to take pictures and please, and he said, don't worry sir, I now have been taking foreigners and tourists take pictures. And I speak Turkish also, I speak a couple of languages, one of them is Turkey from Istanbul and Turkey from other countries. And then he said, where do you want to go? I said, well, you know what? I want to go first to see the Iranian border first. Then I will go around. I said, okay, be ready. And here we are, I'm sitting in the car and going, and the guy saying to me that, sir, be ready, I'm going to turn left and you will see the Iranian mountains. And I'm getting ready, you know, my heart starts beating. And then the car turned left and I saw these two boys having this empty TV obviously it's fantastic pictures. You know, I forgot mountain, Iran, and everything. And I'm going there. Stop, please. He said, mountain is far. I said, no, stop here, sir. Well, the border is far. I said, no, stop here. And the guy said, well, I mean, you told me, and he started arguing, and I saw that it's not going to work. I did something that I really regret even now. I hit him in the shoulder, and in Turkish said that, stop! He looks to me and I broke down and I jumped out and I got 2 pictures. This is one of this. And I love this because I have a brother, Manucher, he's a photographer too, he's 2 years younger than me. He was head of the Associated Press and Agence France Press, and we do the same kind of work in a different way. And somehow these two remember me and him when we are kids, we are photographers, but we are working the reality of the world. You know, that's what is important for me. Just what is it inside? It's just the whole reality. We're just cutting in the reality of what we see. Anyway, cut. I'm back on the car. The taxi driver has his shoulder looking to me. Excuse me, sir. That's how you take all your pictures? I apologize and the driver, you know, he understands it, but for 4 days he was running 10 kilometers per hour, 15 miles per hour in the cars, and looking around. Every time someone crossing, he's breaking down, sir, you want to go take a picture? Actually, this is Ararat Mountain also, which is not far from there, and it was the same taxi driver. Even stopped the car, even I asked him, you know, when he's on. This just happened a few seconds, this. Another place which I did a lot of work is Palestine and Israel. Many stories for the magazine, and I have been spending a lot of time there. And these are the type of the works which I do also. It is, you photographers, you have to wake up early and go out and you find this kind of the scene. You know what is it? It is the Dome of the Rock Mosque reflecting on the water. And in 1982, these are some pictures of the different, as I said, different conflict which I covered. This is in Beirut, 1982, after the bombardment of the Israelis. The Beirut was sieged, and this is some of the very nice horses that they were taking out from the hippodrome to bring in a safe, but because it was a group, they have been shot by the airplanes. Nobody was able to get close. I also spent the time in Sarajevo under siege, and this is my hotel room. You see it? This is all the media and everybody was here in Sarajevo hotel. No electricity, no running water, cold, and snipers everywhere. The worst things about Sarajevo was that for 4 years, in the middle of Europe, you have a city that people were dying of hunger. 4 years. Besieged, and snipers everywhere. You just put your head down and you will get in the fire, you don't know where. And one of those days, I always remember, which has become probably one of the toughest time I have ever been in war. I just came out to take some photographs. That's how even in the worst times, the craziest people are the photographers. We have to go out and take pictures. You know, we can't sit in the hotel rooms. And sometimes I joke with my friends, the writers, saying that, hey, you sit in your room and writing. We have to go out and take pictures. Anyway, I'm walking on the street and I see this. In the middle of the war, snipers, little girl standing there in this way, and I take these pictures and I'm going to her. Hey, what you do here? I'm selling my dolls. It's a few years before Christmas. And I just got shocked. I said, what? What you do? Why? They're snipers. She said, yes, sir. My grandmother is hungry. She hasn't eaten for 4 days. These are the things that the war does also. It doesn't just destroy and kill people. Traumatize. And bring the little girl, sell the dolls, the best things that they have in their lives. for the grandmothers. I spent 6 months on a river between China and Russia, the river called Black Dragon River, or the flow of Amour in French. And one of those days, this is after the fall of Soviet Union, there was millions of the old men and women that they lost everything after the fall of Soviet Union. All the people that retired, they were just put on the streets because of the change of the situation, because change of the possibility of having their own pension. The retirement money of the Soviet times, it was not covering their lives. So you had millions of the people that they really worked to build the Soviet Union, they were let out on the streets. And he was one of them. And I do remember this exact moment, which I saw him because his shirt was a little open, and I saw this tattoo here, so I went to take pictures, but before I start talking to him, and I introduced myself, hello, how are you, who am I, and what is your name? He looks to me and he said, Sergei Vasilovich. And then he started crying, very hard. And I told my interpreter, did you tell something wrong? What's happened? Why he's crying? And we asked him, he said, you know what? After I lost my home and my works and everything, it has been 10 years, I'm on the street and nobody ever asked my name. You are the first one in 10 years just talking to me like human, asking my name. Then I said, you know, what you can say in front of them? I want pictures, and he opened his shirts, and I saw this little cross that added to what was the symbol of those times. Another tough moment also for me was the fight in the border of the Armenia and Azerbaijan. And this is really something that very, very painful, being from the region and seeing how the people that all you love them, that you know them, Armenian, Azerbaijani, we all, Iranian, we all live together, as we know each other, as we have been in the same region, and now they're fighting each other, killing each other in a very tough way. This was one of the time that one Azerbaijani village called Khojali was massacred by the Armenian soldiers. 600 people in one night they were. So these are the things which you see when you are going around and you don't understand why humanity coming down like this. Other stories which I did a lot of works trying to bring the ban on it is the landmine. The landmines, which is used a lot, it's killing children more than what you can imagine. Because the children are very small, obviously. And when they hit the landmine, their bodies, their hearts and everything is exploded. So we don't see the kids with the landmine victims. Only we see the landmines are the adult because they lost one leg, but much more children. So I spend a lot of times fighting this and bringing a lot of countries that finally accepted to ban the landmines. Now, few stories about Africa also. Obviously, being correspondent for China Magazine and also many stories for National Geographic, I spent a lot of time in Africa. And this was, unfortunately, I was witness before, during, and after of this big genocide happened in Rwanda and Burundi. 800,000 people were killed in a few months. Millions of the people became refugees, and these are like people that has lost everything. Refugees arrived, and the first thing it started was building their tents, and this was fantastic to see how resilient is the human life. You can be in a worse situation, but it's still you want to go further. The hope is always come over and over and over. That's what is important for me, to see that, hey, you see, even in the worst situation, the humanities is there. The life is beautiful. Zindagi zibast. This is one thing that we all Persian we know, Zindagi zibast. The life is beautiful. And in the worst situation. The New York Times magazine asked me to do the story about the woman that was raped and have children during the war, and they wanted to keep their children. There was more than 1,500 women that they wanted to keep their children. And community, village people, they didn't want them. They were saying, no, this, your child is an enemy's child. We don't want. And they were saying that this is my child too, I want to keep it. So there was a lot of fightings, and this was a story I was doing from New York Times magazine. And one day in village, I saw this man sitting like this in front of a small village houses. And I tried to understand what is it. He was not speaking. And finally I find out that his granddaughter was raped and had a baby, and she wanted to keep it. And the village people wanted to take her out and throw her out of the village. And he was sitting all the time, day and night, in front of the door to protect his granddaughter and the baby that had. This is his face. One of those times in this Rwanda Burundi story, I was with my wife Rachel there, and then UNICEF and Red Cross people contacted us saying that, yeah, we have a problem. There's 12,000 children that are in the refugee camps, and we don't know where their parents are. Maybe their parents were killed, or maybe they are still alive, but in another refugee camps. There were like 5 refugee camps, 2 million people. How are you going to find some kids there? So they have started a project. This was their idea. They asked us to help it, to photograph those children. So I trained refugees, some refugees, and I brought cameras from Paris, 600 rolls of films, and let them to photograph all these kids, 12,000 kids portrait, and made exhibition all over these refugee camps. So this is the time when they photographing them, all these kids sitting there, 12,000 portraits, imagine. And this is when we made all this exhibition in the refugee camps, and asking people to come and look if you find someone. 3,500 children were united by their families, by this story, just using photography. And that's why I explained that for me, photography is like the beginning of the very big story in the humanity. We can find a lot of ways that photography could help to solve the problems of humanity. And 3,500 people, children, united by their families with this project. Just one thing I remember, because many of them, they were people from the village, they haven't seen pictures, they didn't know how you look through the pictures with someone else. You know what I mean? We have seen pictures of our friends and families from our childhood. So we see a picture, say, oh, this is that picture, this is my brother. But if you haven't seen the pictures in your life of someone, you don't know, your brain, it doesn't really program to see it. So many of those people, they were looking to the pictures, but they were not able to recognize someone that they knew. One day, one of this women that was coming for 5 days and going around and looking at the pictures, and we saw her just fell down and started crying very hard. So everybody runs to her. Now, why are you crying? What's happened? This poor village woman showed a picture, said that, I find my son. So why are you crying? I said, there's only head left. There's no body. then we realized that this is totally, I mean, the vision of something that for us is, then for her was, this is my son head, where's the body? And then I said, okay, sit down here, we bring the whole head and the body together. This is one of the times that the grandmother find her grandson, not by the face, by the sweater that she said, I made this sweater. They are seen on the pictures. And show the picture saying that I did the sweater for my little grandson. So that's how finally they were united by this sweater. Now, tough times when you are a photographer, you want to see the world and what's happening, and then you see this, you know that there is a famine happening in the world. There are people hungry, dying from the hunger. So you want to photograph. But then this was my big challenge was how I could go out from my hotel room in Somalia or wherever, and I will go to photograph someone that died from hunger if I don't know what is really being hungry. Even if I have been myself in a situation that I have been hungry. But before going there, for 3 days I shut my door in an apartment in Paris for 3 days, 72 hours. I didn't eat anything. I just wanted to get these feelings of when I'm in front of these people, what is it and how should it be? So, beside this, I have seen a lot of pictures of the people dying from hunger, taken with many other photographers, and somehow was disturbing me that they were shown as an object, not as human. For me, what was important to show the human dignity. And when I find myself in front of he or she, I don't know, immediately I thought of the Rodin statues, the thinker. But more I was looking to him or her, more I was thinking, my God, what should be in her mind or his mind? What questions she will ask us? Well, maybe she's telling, hey man, I know that you have possibility of moving 10,000 soldiers from one continent to other continent. I know that you have built the biggest building in the world. I know that you have sent rockets and sent whatever, reached the moon, and you can't bring food for me? Maybe these are the questions that he or she is asking us. Maybe these are the questions that we should ask us when we see what's happening in the world. And to ask what and how I could help them. What is my role as a human? But what is again important for me is not all of them. It's really beauty. The beauty of the human history, the beauty of the life, the beauty of every single moment. That's what, if we don't believe in the beauty, we will never go to help others. If you don't like some things, you will not defend it. So love the humanities. Love the people around you. And then you will see how suddenly the things became easier. And this, you know, what is it? This is the Reading Dervishes in Turkey. This was a cover of National Geographic, actually. The first time that the National Geographic in its history bring Rumi in its cover. And these are some of the words which I really mean. I mean, this is Rumi's word. You know about it, many of you. That in generosity and helping others, be like a river. In compassion and grace, be like sun. In concealing others' fault, be like night. In anger and fury, be like dead. In modesty and humility, be like earth. In tolerance, be like a sea. And either exist as you are, or be as you look. What a beautiful words. This could be solved a lot of humanity problems if we really look to it and we understand it. This is what I was reading, and I read not only Rumi but poetry. Poetry helped me a lot going through all these difficult moments always. Talking about beauty, if you have to photograph the South France, what else you can do? Or the full moon lovers in the Altai mountain on the border of China and Russia. I spent 3 weeks living with them, those nomadic Kazakhs. This was a geographic story and so. Do you know where's the horse, is it? No. It's a shade of a horse. It's outside. Oh, I told you I spent 6 months on the river between Russia and China, and this was also one of the geographic stories. And one of the stories was that there are nomadic tribes for 10,000 years living there, which I was doing the story about them. This is a place which, you know how cold become? In centigrade, minus 40 degrees centigrade. I don't know how much is in the Fahrenheit. It doesn't work in Fahrenheit? No?
Minus 40 is the same in Fahrenheit.
Minus 40 is the same? Oh my God. Wow. Now, it's minus 40. This is the film times that we're using the films. And the film's broken inside cameras. It's so cold. Imagine how I am working there. Then come this, obviously fantastic for them news or story. Not for me, saying that, oh, I find out that these guys, they go hunting in the winter only because they put their ears on everything is frozen, and they can know where are the herds that they're going to hunt. This gazelles, the deers or whatever it is. So I have to go with them 8 days, 8 nights with them. You can't imagine. I was crying, so cold and getting those pictures. And that's how you become when you are this. This is one of my assistants, yes. Yeah. But it's really, I mean, minus 40 is really something. Then, obviously, I love horses, and these are, for whom they don't know, the most beautiful horses in the world are the Turkmen horses. Akalteka is the name. If you Google them, you'll find this is just, I mean, you look at this horse. Wasn't it beautiful? These are the most pure and beautiful horses in the world now, Akalteka. A couple of years ago, I was doing a story on Algeria, and this is, I spent a week over these mountains in the south of Algeria. I mean, you're coming up in the early mornings and you got the sunrise. You die. Coming here, I just arrived a few days ago, and before I was invited to Pakistan, Lahore, there was an international book festival in Lahore, and they invited me giving a talk like this and about the books. And so, my airplane crossing Iran. Yeah, 25 years I haven't been in Iran, and my airplane crossing Iran, and I'm looking over there. So I got like a few snapshots of Iran. It is just Persian Gulf, and probably this is Bushehr. I don't know. I will have to check exactly. But what was amazing for me was this faces coming up, looking to it. These are the. So you know, they don't let me. I mean, they don't go Iran. Okay, I take pictures. Don't worry. There's another one of Iran. This is some place south of the Shiraz, I believe. Beautiful. I mean, everybody said Iran is a beautiful country, and I said, yes, of course, I know. I haven't traveled there a lot when I was young. Now, all of those things brought me to think about the spirituality also. Because many of the things happening in the world is in the name of the religion, in the name of spirituality. So I tried to understand it, and I was going around and photographing. And this is 2 years ago in one of the small villages in Azerbaijan. I met this whole village people like this, a Christian that has fled 400 years ago, the Moscow Russian, that they were called the Old Believers, probably you know one. And they have this very simple church, having their ceremonies there, never let foreigners or photographers came, and like a gardeners, always I heard that someone saying that, oh, this is never been photographed. Then it starts, you know, I think, okay, I want to photograph. So I get like negotiating to them to be able to go to the churches. And when I enter, first I thought there is some movie crew about 18th century Russian doing some films about it. I mean, this is, imagine happening just now, and it looks like 18th century Russian paintings. Tolstoy and one of those guys sitting there. Come on, I mean. This was another scene after, for me, was, I mean, just seeing one guy sitting in the middle of the desert. And this is how I believe that somehow we should understand that the spirituality is individual, and you shouldn't make this ideologically or using as an ideology and creating all this ism and all those things. It exists, but it should exist in everybody individually. This is a Russian Orthodox church. And I mean, you know that during the Soviet times, in all the Soviet countries, the mosques, the churches, the synagogues, and every temples were either destroyed or turned to be a a school or bus station or whatever. So after the fall of Soviet Union, they started to rebuild many of them or build new ones. And I was walking in the Bakus, and then I saw this beautiful Russian church, very nice, old in the villages, I mean, in a small part of the city. And then it was a few days before Easter, and I get the permission to go and photograph the Easter, the Russian Orthodox. When I entered the church, I saw a portrait of a man with a tie and, you know, a big portrait, like as big as this TV screen. By the way, you see the difference of the quality of the,
yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about. This portrait of this man was put on the entrance of the church, and the people were putting candles, all this Orthodox comings and before Easter, putting candles and praying for him. And so obviously I take a picture and I ask them, who is this guy? Why in entrance of the church you have a guy with the tie and the suit and putting candle on it? And I said, this is Mr. Aydin Gurbanov. I said, excuse me, Aydin Gurbanov is a Muslim name. Well, what is doing here? And everybody, why everybody is putting candle on him? I said, well, you know, he is one of our neighbors. He's a Muslim, yes. And he is a businessman. And one day he was passing through the church and he saw the church destroyed, and he built the whole church for us. He came and he put money and he rebuilt the whole church. This is how I believe the tolerance should be in the human history. Well, a Muslim neighbors building Russian Orthodox Church for the Christian living in his neighborhood. This is, I do believe that if we should think about spirituality. There was another scene that I was really struck with it also. When I saw a village, a Christian village in the middle of Azerbaijan. This was also, the church that you see was rebuilt, and I was photographing the whole ceremony of the rebuilding the church. This is imagine a village in a Muslim country which is, all of them are Christians. And I saw they're putting this table in it. And I asked the priest there, is it a weddings or what's happening? Why you have this table? It was afternoon. And he said, oh, by the way, you know what is Ramadan? And I looked at the priest and I said, excuse me, what is wrong with you? So, it's Ramadan, so what? He said, no, you know what? We in the village, every Ramadan, we make a party and we invite all the Muslims around to come in the church and we break fast with them. Exactly, oh my God. I mean, these are the examples which I have seen exist in the world, living all these people together. Nobody's fighting each other. So everything that else which I have seen around us, it's purely ideological and political. The real people, the reality is this in the world. Christian in the church, in the Ramadan, they invite the Muslims around coming and breaking fast with them. This is in the South Algeria also, a fantastic place if you ever have time to go. The village is called Dardaya. It's really unbelievable architectures. I find that Le Corbusier, one of our master architects, has got his inspiration from here. Cairo was my first story for National Geographic. And this little boy is walking on the lights. This is a Mongolia, the school teacher with his four-wheel drive car. This is a fun story also about photography. I did a big story 2 years ago about the coffee production, coffee farmers all over the world, 6, 7 countries. And I was going to Guatemala, and from the first days, all my assistant and people helping me saying that, oh, you know, when we go to this Guatemalgo, we have to go over this mountain. It's just 2 hours drives off the road, but when we arrive there, you will see the whole Guatemala. And I was telling them, you know, I love what you say, but landscapes, I'm here to photograph the farmers. And I don't have time. No, sir, you have to go, please. We have to go to Guatemalgo mountain. Finally, I accepted, and 2 hours drives on the mountain roads go up. We arrived there, and there was nothing. It was fog everywhere. So all they're looking to each other and saying that, I'm sorry, sir, we have never seen fog here. They said, well, this is my lucky day. And it was my lucky day, because suddenly this woman from village saw some foreigners there, and she came up to bring me some flowers. And this was my lucky day, even better than just photographing a landscapes. This is how I saw sometimes in photography. I don't know how, you get some incredible gift from somewhere. But this is the only things you see from the old Guatemala is the head of these things coming up over there. I told you about my portraits. The portraits are one of the works which I do a lot. And this is a portrait in Egypt. He's like this taxi driver which I had in Turkey. I didn't hit him, by the way, so don't worry. But he has a boat, a small boat in the Nile River, and just crossing the Nile. You pay him, and I needed a small boat, and so I hired him to worked with me for 4 days, and I got two portraits of him. Now, tell me if I'm wrong or right. Every single country in the world, I saw these pictures, the woman fell in love with him. Right? Another portrait, French famous girl, Laetitia Casta, which is a photographer. I don't do fashion, I don't do advertisements. These are the things which I don't photograph. I don't do. This was just a portrait. And now I want to go back a little more about when we're talking about spreading the image to the exhibition and doing installation, because that's how also bring the people in a different way together. It's like, for example, this is a portrait of a French most famous actress or model, and she's from the island Corsica. So when I was invited to do an exhibition in Corsica, I brought her picture. This is like 15 meters high. What is making your feet, or how many feet do you have? 15 meters, 45 feet. 45 feet. So but also I put this Afghan girls' portraits, which looks like two sisters. It was amazing. So this was one of the exhibition. Another one I did in Paris. There is two big museums, which probably you heard about them, Grand Palais and Petit Palais. Grand Palais is mainly, they do a lot of exhibition, but Petit Palais, they never had a photo exhibition. And they invited me to do installation and photography, and this was the exhibition I did last year. Exhibiting, as I said, I go to places and I look to the area and I design the way we should be. This was in a La Villette Park in Paris, another exhibition. This is even 20 meters high, the portraits. In Doha, Qatar, the first ever outdoor exhibition. I did it 2 years ago. This is the Paris Stock Exchange. They invite me to have a carte blanche, saying that we wanted you to do an exhibit for us. And they show me all the galleries inside the palace. And I look around and I came out and I said, no, this is where I want to do exhibition. But this was the first time that someone using the columns of a building like this to do an exhibition. Back to this Panjshir Valley, those years with working photographing there, one day Masood told me that you take all these pictures and people, they don't see it. And I said that I will promise that I will do an exhibition for the people of the valley. Masood was killed in 2001, and finally in 2008 I returned back and I did this installation for the village people. This is the 50 photographs which I make donation to them, and there was like thousands of people coming from all the villages looking to their pictures and finding people they knew. Talking about installation also, I use art in a different way. You all remember about the story of the Neda that was killed in Iran, and this was one of the first citizen journalist works. We'll talk about the citizen journalism. So the way which I did, I find her pictures to the internet and I make the 500 portraits, and I invited 500 people in Paris to come and take her pictures like standing in front of the Eiffel Tower. The picture was sent to Iran later. Another I did also in Washington DC, in front of the White House, the same things. Now, tell me how you can block the roads in front of the Washington, the White House, and they bring 500 people. You go for it. It takes a lot of times to get this permission, but it was nice settings of the using photography in a different way. Oh, Tahrir Square, you heard about it. obviously, where everything started. And I was obviously in the Tahrir Square. When everything's going on, you have thousands of the people surrounded, sieged, and what they do, everybody has his phone and taking pictures and recording everything. But what's happened after 2 hours you filmed? The memory is full. You can go home because you're sieged. This guy is like Ted Turner. You know what he did? He brought his computer and he said, everybody, I can download your cards. Allow me just to put on my website. So he created a website and everybody bringing his memories he was putting on it, and then he was sending them through email. So they were receiving whatever the film was. But he hit in the numbers of the people that visiting his website in the 10 days, he hit the CNN, BBC, and all of them together. Because he had 10,000 of the reporters, everybody was filming and he was putting the pictures in his website. With one computer he did. That's what is the whole transition and change which is coming to the world of the media. Nothing, no charge, no. No, he just did it, free. Just said, just let me to put in my website, download it, and I will do it free. Even he was providing down here a big long wire for the charging the phones, the batteries. Now, truly, this is the way in which I work. I really bow in front of the people which I'm photographing. I believe that they are bigger, all of them higher and more important than I am. Just kneeling in front of this farmer in the mountains of India, photographing her barefoot who's working on it. This is how I believe that my role as a human should be in the world. But sometimes you get reward on it. When I was photographing her foot and she was looking to me, I look up and this was her face. Past 2 years, I'm more concentrated in Kurdistan, Iraq, because of the Islamic State, because of what's happening there. I believe that my role as a photographer, I have to show what's happening in this region. So I spent the past 2 years a lot there, and preparing a book about Kurdistan, and also trains refugee children, which I will talk about later. So this is, recently I was in the city of the Shingal, the Kurdish city that was 2 years under occupation of the Islamic State, and these are the people called Izeti. These are the women that were kidnapped by the Islamic State and were sold and take slaves, and this is one of the horror stories which I have been through to the past 2 years. Hearing all the stories of many of those women that I met, and they explained their story, what's happened to them. This is just really horror of our times. And this is just me a few weeks ago in the trenches of the Peshmerga in front of the Islamic State on the other side. They make such a nice tea, by the way. It's much better than tea bags that we got here. Okay, now here again, that's how I work. That's how I really, every time I'm in places or country, I'm trying to be as much as possible looking like the people. Each of them is one of the books or stories which I was doing at the So I'm a witness, obviously, in the eye of the storm. And I do a short film. So before going to my next part of the works, which is all the humanitarian works. I want to show a short film, which is called In the Eye of the Storm. And this is, now looking to these pictures, to look into this short film, just imagine that all this was seen by one person. Everything that you see, obviously, and this is the if it's work here. It's working.
Try to take on the strange and enriching journey that consists in transposing yourself in somebody else's mind, body, and life. Listen to the story behind these photographs. I can still hear the unbearable torture of mourning in their wailings. history, your story are the wind. Let them cry. Wherever you are, they will follow.
Now it's time for exodus. Ils sont avant pour le suivre des aucune destination pour aucun avenir. One goal to find.
We want one thing. We declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, when we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary.
I can still hear the childlike laughter resonating like a hint of irony in the bitter memory of those many destinies shattered by war and injustice. It is impossible to remain a spectator.
So, it is impossible to remain a spectator. And this is an important word. You can't remain a spectator looking to this, one of this Persian poet, Sa'di, Bani Adam A'dâ Yekdigar. All humanity are part of one soul body. And if one part of the body is suffering, the whole body will suffer. That's the reality which I have been through and I have seen it. So it's impossible to remain a spectator. I'm not a spectator, I'm a photographer, witness. But then what else I can bring it? What else I can do? I realized that education is the key for the future. I met this little boy in one of the most destroyed villages in Afghanistan, that nothing was left there, no trees, nothing. And he was doing what we have all done in the school, growing a seed and coming out of the school. And I photographed him and I said, "What are you going to do with it?" And he looked at me like I'm an idiot. What a question. I'm going to grow a tree out of it. What a beautiful master for me. I'm going to grow a tree out of it. He became somehow one of my masters of the thoughts and learnings all around the world, what I do. Then I realized that we do something wrong also. We train our children from the childhood to military bases. This is wrong. We don't do it. The governments, they bring us, the generals, the militaries, they need people running on the mine. They need people to go and to be killed and killed. So they take our children and they make them become military person. So this is like in a school in China. This is a park for the children in China. This is a small workshop in Pakistan. They're building guns. Little soldier in Cambodia. And I should add one or two pictures. It's our children playing war games here, video games. Believe me, those are not innocent games. They want us, they want our children to play with those video games, war games. Then when they are bigger, they can push buttons and they kill real people. Think twice before letting your children and any children play with these war video games. They are not innocent, they are not just toys. They have been brought us by the same thoughts that they want to bring the wars to us. So, what can I do? This is the best things that we could bring. We really have to start educating the children if we really want a better future. So, obviously, I'm not only a witness, I'm a committed witness. And what I'm doing by transmitting the universal language of image, creating this fund, which is the photography for humanity. All my works which you will see, it's in these two main words, the global visual education. The image has the capacity as becoming an important vector of the education in the world. And obviously, the fund also need to help me to preserve and my visual funds. I do have 1,500,000 pictures. These are not pictures of my children's birthday parties. I wish I was in their birthday and taking their pictures. I'm always traveling. Sorry, my kids, for them, they're here. I haven't been much time spending with them. But these pictures, they are not belonging to me either. They belong to the humanity. Now, it's even big and heavy in my shoulder that I have to find a way to preserve them, to give them to the humanity, to the future. Yeah. This is why we have created these funds to help this. But it has started almost in the same years that I started taking pictures. This is my first trip in Afghanistan. Yeah, you're right, this is me. You know, it changed. Actually, you see the dog is one of could you come up and stand up later? When I saw him yesterday, he's the one that's organizing this. And I looked at him and said, oh, I was exactly like him when I was at the university. Now you can imagine what will be happening 50 years from now. Very nice. Very nice.
How old were you at that picture?
29. So what's happened when I went to photograph Afghanistan, immediately I realized that, hey, we have to work with the photographers, filmmakers and everybody, we have to work on the mountains. And I mean, imagine if this is the whole country, the map, well, how much you can walk in 2 weeks? The Time magazine say you walk 3 weeks. You can walk over here. So what's happening in the whole other countries? Nobody knows. So this was my idea first thing that, okay, if I train just some refugees and I buy some cameras and I give them, just as a gift, and let them to go because they are the one which is going to be in their countries, they will take pictures, something will remain of it. It is not for me, I don't want them sending pictures to me or by magazine or whatever, just the concept was we need have witness, people that live in the story, being witness of the story. So this was the first day which I started having this there. From there, 1983 then and 85, I did the same thing in the South Africa, in the townships. I trained the first ever South African black photographer that became the Associated Press director later, and because there were people living in the townships. You live there, you have a camera, you take whatever's happening. Me, when I'm going there, I'm stopped because I'm a professional photographer, and they said, no, you can't go there. So then in the Philippines, then in Bangladesh for 3 years, then in China. So I keep parallel to my works, trainings. And in 2001, finally, I started this non-profit NGO in Afghanistan, which was called Bunyad Farhangi va Matbuati Aina, the Aina as a foundation for the independent media, and train them thousands of Afghan women, mainly men, to become film writer, photographer, videographer, everything related to media and communication, because I do believe that if we really push for the peace in the world, we have to educate children and we have to give the women more possibility, especially in the governance places, in the media and communication. Women are the mothers. They don't want to create wars. This is a man fight. Really. This is as I have seen. So trainings as much as women to become storytelling. They're telling their stories. This was one of the works of Aina. We created this magazine for the children called Parvaz. Free distribution to the houses. Another thing which we did, was creating this mobile cinema, going from the village to village, showing educational films for the women. I mean, how you want to show to the Afghan women in the villages, or African women, or many others, that the health issues, how to deal with such and such health issues. The film, obviously. So we trained actors, playwrights doing this, and then make the films and go and show in the villages to them. The result was unbelievable. In one cases, because we were doing this for UNICEF, WHO, all the UN agencies, the government, health, whatever is it. The result was just unbelievable. We created the first magazine ever for Afghan women, called Malalai, 2002. Has the same name, this Malalai that who got the Nobel Prize, has the same name, Malalai. And we trained also Afghan camera women. The first story of the Afghan woman told by the Afghan woman. Who better than Afghan women tell the stories of Afghan women? You know what's happened? The first ever film done by them, we trained 9 months. Okay? 9 months. Many of you maybe have done years in the media schools and trainings and making films. They got nominated to Emmy Award, their first films ever done. We helped educate the first female photojournalists in Afghanistan. These are the first working for Associated Press, for UN, for other organizations. These are more than 1,000 people, we trained them to launch the media, the free media in Afghanistan. Actually, one of our students, Masood Hosseini, Afghan, got Pulitzer Prize in 2012 with his picture. This is one of our organization students. She's another student in refugee camps in Uganda. But the work is not only related to the war zones and conflict zone, it's also in the suburbs, the poor neighborhood and the Europe. These are the 100 kids in Sicily, one of the toughest places in Europe, that we train them, we bring them the cameras, and they were photographing their neighborhood. The places which no professional photographer were allowed to go. Actually, the first day when I was going there, they told me, the people that you know, sir, in Italian language, you see, if they saw your camera, they will shoot you. I said, what? They said, yeah, they shoot you if they saw your cameras. I said, I will train their children. Now, hundreds of their kids, they have cameras. This is another also in 8 French poor suburbs and kids which we were training, they're telling the stories of their neighborhoods. But internet is another way also of spreading the knowledge of photography. This is a page in internet which Children's Eyes on Earth, and I'm using the photography competition to bring the children in the world to go for important issues. Like this photography competition was, the theme of the photography was, I love nature, I fear pollution. this was the best way to bring the children to look to the important issues that like pollution and conservation and all those things. And this, imagine these are the pictures all taken by the children under 18 years old. Two years ago I was giving a talk in Washington National Geographic, and I showed these pictures without the said, and I said that, well, I have been through all, this was all my photographers, friends of Geographic, and I would just say that I have been through to your archives in National Geographic, and I picked up the 100 best pictures of the nature that you have taken, and I showed them, and everybody said, wow, beautiful, whose pictures is it? And then everybody said, okay, sit down, these are all kids. These are all children pictures that was taken. This is the winners. This 8 years old girl. I love nature, I fear pollution. Imagine, I mean, this is how I'm trying to spread the important themes to bring the children to go look to understand what is the pollution is. Otherwise, if you want to take them to school or whatever, it's boring for them to conservation. And the new project which I'm working on it, which is called Exile Voices, mainly, as I said, last 2 years in Syria, in Kurdistan, Iraq. This is a refugee camp, so I'm photographing the refugees in the Syrian refugees in the Iraq, Kurdistan. I haven't done black and white works for many years. So this is some of those refugee children which I'm training them. I'm photographing them. This is my new photographs of the refugees. These are all Syrians, mainly Kurds, Syrian Kurds kids. And also I'm training them. This is my new students, like 20 of them. This is the cameras which I bring for them, and I train always a local refugee that I find is a journalist or is a filmmaker. They are refugees. You know better than me that the refugee could be a doctor, could be a lawyer, could be whatever. And he stayed, and through the internet now, they all have their badge, they go on they have their press cards, and I'm creating now a network of the camp reporters all around the world. This is my main works now. Having the camp reporters in each refugee camps. Children, these are the children here. Another camp is only women's, the Yazidi women's. They are the one. In another camp, the adults 20 years old are on. So this is what I'm doing now, creating these camp reporters, and through their works, create to the media, international media. New York Times published a piece on them recently. The National Geographic published a story about it. So this is my new challenge working. I mean, my farm, which as I explained to them. And this is my classroom. I love it. This is my tent and classrooms. That's how I start working with them. Now, a little story is that when I go in these places, either here or in the neighborhood, working with the poor children, that they have been gathered, they have heard that there is a photographer who's coming and teach you, and I always start saying that I have a bad news and good news. Which one do you want first? Also, the kids are looking to me and say, oh, well, what's it? And I said, well, bad news is that I'm not going to teach you photography. So everybody looks to me, no? Why you brought us here? I said, but the good news is that I'm going to give you a tool, which is camera, showing them, that speak all the language of the world. And you will be able to tell your story to everybody in the world you want. You may not become a photographer, but you will be able to connect the world. And that works perfectly. Because all those kids, they want to talk to the world. Like this little 13 years old boy in Tabriz that wanted to talk to the world and was looking for a tool. So that's why it works. Maya Rostam, 12 years old. Maya Rostam, 12 years old. She was not part of my class in the beginning. But she was for 2 days coming and standing outside of the tent, listening. And I called her, Maya, who you are, what you do? And she said, sir, I heard that we can show to the world how we live. Because I had a house. I was going to school. And I don't know why I'm here. I want the world to understand what's happening to me. Obviously, I gave him the camera. She took the camera and she ran away. And Muhammad Qadri, the refugee, that he's my assistant, he starts running after, hey sir, I didn't even have time to write her name. I don't know who she is. You just give the camera. You know, so I said, well, wait a minute. We will see what's happening tomorrow. I start my classroom at 9 o'clock every day, mornings. Everybody's there, Maya is not there. 9:30, obviously, Muhammad started telling me, sir, I told you, don't give the camera to everybody's coming and asking for a camera. You know, we lost the camera. I said, well, wait, let's see what's happening. 10 o'clock, Maya opened the tent door, standing looking around. And I'm very tough as a teacher. And I called her and said, Maya, come in. Why are you late? She bought the cameras, the pictures on the cameras, and she told me, sir, that's why I'm late. I looked to the camera, and I regretted. You know what I said? Crying, sobbing, whatever it is. So all these other students start yelling at her. Hey, what did you do to teachers crying like that? And then I was looking to the pictures, I couldn't believe it. In one day, she had got everything right. She said, this is why I'm late, sir. My shoes were frozen. I have to wait till my shoes is better than why that's why I'm late, and I wanted to show the pictures. Then for me it was, that's all I have done. I helped them to understand how to use image language to tell their stories. That's what I want to do. So I do believe in with all I'm doing with my photography, with my humanitarian works, that art is a solution for a lot of problems we have. But obviously, you know that there's something even better than art, which is heart. So heart is the solution. And I do believe that all of you have this big heart, and you understand better than I do why we all need to go in the direction to think about the people around us and to help them. So give them the possibility to show the beauty of the life. Thank you very much for your time. Of the people, when they see obstacles, they just say, oh, it's a wall, I can't cross it. One person looked at this and said, what a beautiful step. You know, it's a different vision, different way of looking to the things around you. Then, giving the photojournalism, it's two words. Photo and journalism. So you need to know about the photography, obviously. You need to be perfect on composition, on lightings and everything. but you also need to be a good journalist. So it makes you balance between a very good visual communicator, but also very good storyteller. Many of these people that you see or stories I was doing, I was reading books and researching about all this works for months. Because if I don't understand the subject, how through my pictures I could make you understand? The first thing is myself, I have to understand it. Then you understand it. So it's like the French saying is translation is better in French saying that in each works you have 90% of the works of strategies and 10% of the inspiration. 10% is inspiration and 90% is strategy. So this is please.
When you're dealing with a subject that's kind of so close to a subject, how do you, aside from just speaking with them, is there something you do to gain their trust? How do you get them? Do you ever find that there's a barrier to them allowing you to take the photo that you have to break down? How do you do that?
Well, this is also one of the main things about the photojournalist. If you really love someone, you don't even have to talk. He understands. He feels it. So when I'm with those people, they don't look at me as a tourist which is coming out with his hat and then, shirt, Bermuda, and the cameras and going pictures and going back to the bus. They look to me as someone that they understand that I care about. They feel it. I don't even have to talk. Because this is the human relation. You see someone, you shake hands, you look at him, and you immediately know what's going to happen now. And many of those people, as I said, when you bow yourself in front of a farmer in India, that they have always seen white people, and they look to me as a white person. They're coming as a top guys, even if the little workers come, they're coming, and then they saw one of them come and go in front of them. It goes everywhere. This is the match of the love about the people or subject that you have. There's no barrier after. Then people come and ask you, could you please come and take my picture? I think it works. Please.
I have a question. Do you choose your place of your subject on your own, or the National Geographic send you, for example, go to Pakistan or to Iraq? Is it your decision or their decision?
When I was working for Time magazine, before in the 80s, or news coverings, this was according to the news that was happening, and news which I was better related to or not. So I was not asked to go to Salvador, but I was going to Peru, I was going to the office. With National Geographic, mainly these are, or other publications which I'm working on, it's mainly my choice. I have, after all these years of works, I'm creating a puzzle for my entire works. As a Persian, Iranian origin, being a world citizen after being in 100 more countries in the world, and witnessing the humanity in general, what's happening. So I know that now I have to concentrate my works to show how the Islamic State doing with the Yazidis. And now tomorrow I'm going to do this, 2 years after them. This is what is my, somehow, my way of working.
Kind of building on top of that, have you guys decided where your next project or trip might be?
If I have decided,
Yeah.
for how many years?
No, I mean like recent.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
Very soon.
Well, I do have a long list of the project which I wanted to do. In the meantime, I'm very adept of the saying that you have to live and create thinking that it's going to last forever, but you have to live in a way that you may die in a second. This is very important to do what you're doing. There is another way in the between people which we work and we do, saying that never say what is your next subject. It's what you call it, superstitious.
Omen. It's
Omen?
an omen.
Yeah, you never say what's your next. But there's a big list. Obviously, well, as I said, I have been in Iran from 1981, and I like one day to go back there. But what I was doing all along in these 35, 40 years, for me was also part of the culture of the humanity, as Iran culture is part of human cultures. It is not we and others. We are part of the big human cultures. We have done some works in some part of the history, and others doing another part of the history, and that's how I'm trying to work. Please.
Hi, Reza.
Oh, how are you?
I wanted to ask you, as an Afghan, I met Reza in 2002 after seeing firsthand the first women that were trained by Aina, and now being friends with Masood and Farzana, who didn't even study there yet. So I've watched what impact it's had for Afghanistan. And we really appreciate it. And I guess something I always want to, I've asked you a little bit about it, but I want to ask it publicly, is just your relationship with Ahmad Shah Massoud, and I mean, it's like I'm an Afghan, and I didn't get to meet him. My family didn't get to meet him. We're from Panjshir, but it's such a blessing and like a treasure in your life, and I just would love to hear about that, and the day that you found out he's gone.
Brother.
Sorry.
One of the blessings of doing this work is meeting incredible people. Some of those people are famous. Some of those people are, or most of them are anonymous. And I always keep speculation. I was showing these pictures of the little Afghan boy saying that he is my master because he taught me poetry out of a little sea. Between the people which are known and really famous, I think that meeting Masood was very important for me. I was one of the very first photographers that I spent 3 months on the Bilka Mountains going around and looking for one guy that 100,000 Russian soldiers were looking for him, and I was along going around also finding him. And the minute I met and we sit down and we talk, and then I find out what he's doing or what he is, I realize that this is a man of the history. We did have in region histories like Abu Muslim Khorasan, we had Babak Khoda, we had Mossadegh, we had Gandhi. And Masood was one of those persons for me. I spent 17 years from 85 to 2001. And his loss was a big loss for humanity, a big loss for the region, a big loss for Iran even, because his dream was not only for Afghanistan. His dream was we all need to reach a real democratic way of the government. Pakistani military, no money left, no munition. This is my first documentaries into the forbidden zone for National Geographic we did with Sebastian Junger. And here he said in the press conference, I'm not here for Afghan. I came here to send a message to President of America. This is April 2001. To April 2001. I'm here to send a message to President of America that if you don't come and look what's happening in Afghanistan, your people suffer soon. This is what he came to say in the press conference. Your people will suffer soon. This was April 2001. And 9/11 happened a few months after. And he was killed 2 days before 9/11. They were all late. It's a long story. It's a long story. One moment which also I remember to see how he was. The first time I met, he was training 100 young boys in Panjshir. He has become one of the most incredible guerrilla strategies in the world. What he was doing, it's now in a military academy of Moscow. They're teaching. And this 100 people that he was training, after 3 months, he was sending each one to 100 places in Afghanistan, saying, okay, now you go this place, you train another 100, and you train here another 100, you train another 100. That's how he is freed, and he got his 10,000 guerrillas to fight Russia. 1992, when finally he conquered Kabul, I was the only journalist photographer sitting on the transport coming to the Kabul. And the first things he did, he said, I want to bring all these hundreds, the first hundreds together. The first 100 students that he has trained. So he sent a message that now that the Kabul can get all of them to come, and I was with him this day. There was only one big hotel in Kabul, it was Kabul Hotel, and he had this meeting. You know how many of them left? 13 out of 100. Out of 13. Only 13. His word, which I remember, and I always curse me why I didn't have it. You know, in 92 we didn't have those little digital cameras that you push a button and you film everything, and you take your iPhone and you record it. We had the big cameras and heavy and no films. And his word was, well, we only 13 of us left. And we fight hard to get here. It was difficult. Our shoulders was hard by our guns. But I have good news. This is this word. From tomorrow, this is going to be our gun. We take his pen. Tomorrow. This was the man that we're talking about, which I had a really privilege spending for 17 years on and off, being playing chess with him. He was a chess player, very good. And, but you know, unfortunately, the Iranian government doesn't want strong Massoud. The Pakistan government didn't want the Russian didn't want Massoud. The American didn't want Massoud. So what you do when all these others are against you, one day, somewhere, you know, that's what's happened. But this was a real loss for the whole. You did a fantastic song about it. Ariana Delaware, she's from Kabul, and she has been living in Los Angeles from your childhood. And she has done incredible works on the filmmakers. Yeah. Last time I saw you was in Brazil. You were showing your films in Brazil. No? Sao Paulo. When I worked in Sao Paulo, I met her. I said, what you do here?
Well, if you didn't pave a road, we wouldn't be able to go play.
I see. Please.
So, you kind of talked about this. What kind of photography do you like yourself? Like, or what kind of photographers do you follow? Or better say, what kind of photography you don't like? Have you ever taken photos without any stories behind, or like, just being visual present, or should there be always something behind the photo that you want to talk about, or like many other?
Okay. Okay. Well, the kind of photography which I don't like is the bad photography. Maybe I can answer it in a different way, saying that 4,500 years ago, when we started having writings, the first, the cuneiform writings or hieroglyphs, everybody that learned how to use this chisel and write, they were called scribes, writers. It takes 1,000 years to see that this is just a tool. One is writing novel, one is writing poetry, one is writing the accounting, one is writing the journalism, totally different mentality, different people. Now we are in the same age, because everybody has a camera called photography, it's true. But it's not that everybody that has camera have the same mindset and everything. Someone take fantastic pictures of the chairs for a company which is selling the chairs. Someone do photography items, someone just like to do fashion photography, someone do pictures underwater. These are only people using the tools which to show and to write the story which is important for them. So that's why for me, the kind of photography which I like is a good photography, as I said. And I have a friend that has the best underwater photography. And I have a friend that has the best landscape, whatever it is. So this is the more important thing. A couple of months ago, I had an interview in the famous French radio station. And before going there, it's like a talk show. One of those guys that is very famous, and my assistant people who were working saying that, Reza, don't go there. He's a nasty guy. He always try to catch you and pick you. And I said, well, I don't have nothing to say. I have seen worse. Let's go and see what's going on. So he started the beginnings a lot, praising my words and what are doing fantastic. And answering to, oh, the guy is really nice. Then say, but I have bad news for you, Mr. Reza. Uh-oh, this is the start. What is the bad news? He said that soon you will lose your job. You will not. You will be unemployed. He said, why do you think that? So because now everybody has a camera. Even with the phone, everybody take pictures. So why is it a problem? I said, well, Mark, I hope that everybody has a camera. Nobody. And I'm looking really forward that everybody will have a camera. But I can see that you have a Mont Blanc pen. It's a radio job, but this is fantastic pen. But why you don't write like Balzac? Hugo. It's just a matter of people think that because I have a camera and I buy a camera, so I'm a photographer. Yes, we have seen a lot of very new young photographers going around, because now the cameras that are set in a way that you really have to decide to make a bad picture. I mean, you have to say, how can I do that, getting bad exposure and out of focus, this is the thing. So, and when focus and exposure is good, and good sunlight and the sunset, well, people, they show to their mothers, and mothers say, my son is a fantastic photographer. And the son goes out and says, I'm a photographer. So, there's thousands of the photographers, which thanks to their mom has become photographers and going around. But they don't write like Balzac anymore. Or Hemingway. You had a question?
Two questions.
Definitely.
One is, who are your famous or favorite photographers that you follow?
I have friends. If I give one name, then all the others will be. So, yeah, I do have a lot of friend photographers. We get together. We had a National Geographic meetings every year. We had in Paris some photographers. But we all also know in this level our weakness and our strengths of all of them. So really, I don't know. I loved when I was a kid looking around. Mainly, I was looking for the painters. My favorite were the painters of the Renaissance and Georges Latour and these kind. I was going to the Louvre and spending days looking for the paintings, and I learned more of the painters than photographers.
My other question is, given that camera is your medium to freedom, to hope for the world, what is, and given how technology is changing exponentially every day, and we've seen what happened to the 4x5 cameras and the digital cameras today, where do you think, or what do you like to see in the future happen to cameras?
Fantastic. 6 months ago, one of those companies, which I don't want to make publicity, come up with the cameras, and I got it, and I went back, finding my notebooks. This is 6 months ago, exactly. It's 2016. And I went back to my notebooks in 1983 in Afghan mountains, when I was dead tired of carrying all those cameras. One of the things I was, they said, what will be my dream camera? And I wrote them, and this is now there. In 83, I wrote this, what will be the dream camera? And this is now almost, it's still a little more. So what I see, obviously, the first thing that is important to come out is that most of the cameras which we do have, it's still ergonomy and constructions of the cameras that was done for the films. So the companies like Nikon, Canon, Pentax, all of them, they didn't put enough research on creating the ergonomy that is good for the digital. Because they're talking about that money. They just keep the old-fashioned bodies, cameras, and just put the electronic inside instead of films. But me, again, having this tool for 50 years and being an architect and designer, I was designing my dream cameras for years. So if, I don't know, if anybody wants to come up and go to Kickstarter with Reza and launch this dream camera, I'm ready. But it's true that we need to change the whole ergonomy.
How much you need to care about your subject in front of you given that situation? How much is important when you want to take a picture about surrounded people with different people in war zone or something like that? How much that part is important, and how much the result of
Very important question. Very important question saying that what is your relation with the person in front of you, in photography, that is softening the voice. I have a very strict rules. That the first thing is that if I am here, when I'm in a war zone, when I'm in front of people softening, if I'm here, I'm not just passing by. It's not just, it just happened that I was here. Oh, what's happened to you? I choose, or I am part of a magazine, I was part of an organization, I'm here because as a witness. So whatever happened, even in the tough times. I mean, you saw my pictures in the trenches there in the Kurdistan. I mean, you know, it's tough. We're 63 years old, spending all this time now in the trenches. Even the 20-year guys get tired after the hours. And they look at me and say, how do you warm up? How do you do it? Because this is the strength of the millions of the people that I know that they have to see my pictures that help me through. But I will only go for it till the person is in front of me, it doesn't need my hands. I will take pictures even in a very difficult situation. Even, you know, many of those pictures you saw, I was taking with the tears in my eyes. Actually, when the first autofocus cameras was invented, I was so happy, and all my friends, the traditionalists, said, oh, autofocus is not good, I need to go with hands. And I said, no, it's very good, because I can cry and take my picture. But anyway, so it has happened at times that the person that was in a very difficult situation and fantastic picture, but he or she needs just my hand, and I drop my camera, obviously. This is the limit for me. If they don't need your hand, you're a photographer taking pictures, because those pictures you have to show to the people to what what's happening.
If they need your help, your hand, you take a picture, put your camera away, and help them, or just put the camera away.
It depends on the time. Now, because you brought up, let me explain one situation. That probably I lost Pulitzer Prize pictures, but it doesn't matter. This was a time that the same day that the whole Afghan government was collapsed and there was nobody, and I was running from Paris going to Kabul. When I arrived in Pakistan, I got a car, the whole soldiers' government was collapsed. Nobody was there. And nobody knew, nobody was daring to take the road. I take the driver, and people was running out of the Kabul. Now here I am exactly coming with my car, sitting there with my cameras ready, and we saw from the far a bus full of the refugees, people of the Kabul, fleeing Kabul. I think that, I don't remember, maybe we just 5 minutes before we had to stop, my driver wanted something, so we were a little far, late. The bus, the minibus hit a landmine in front of me. The landmine that probably, if my driver wasn't stopped for a few minutes, our car would be there. Now, the scene is exactly because it's in my mind here. You have this minibus which is long, like long, fire, broken, few people, bodies out, and I just jumped out, take my pictures. Then I heard this little girl shouting, I'm John, I'm John.